Welcome to the first episode of our new podcast called Football Minded on the Go Ahead Goal. We'll be your hosts. I'm Peter.
And I'm Tony.
Yeah. So this will be kind of like a weekly episode where we round up last week's results, Champions League, top five leagues, any interesting stories, and stuff that we like.
Yeah, and
So
we
yeah,
venture out into North American football as well. Well, soccer, as we call it out here. So MLS, mostly MLS, unless there's any big event or something. We'll focus mostly on MLS. With the playoffs coming up, we'll definitely be covering quite a bit for that too. So stay tuned for that. But for now, for this episode, we're gonna focus more on the European football, especially Champions League, having happened just this past week, and then also the past few games on during this past weekend as well.
all right, yeah, let's get into it.
All right. So since it's been almost a week now since Champions League happened, we had Tuesday games.
Yeah,
We had several. There are several to talk about. I mean, the ones that we thought were most entertaining or produced some of the nicest highlights you can say. So we can start with PSG versus Dortmund. I managed to catch quite a bit of that game. I was pretty impressed, honestly, with PSG and how they played, especially considering they had lost their previous league game at home to Nice. That was that was not a pretty game to watch, but they redeemed themselves in that game in the Champions League. Dortmund were virtually non-existent, especially the attack. PSG shut them down pretty well.
yep.
It took an Mbappe penalty to open up the scoring, but Ashraf Hakimi at least made it to double the lead, and I mean PSG didn't look back from there, and they secured the win. And I think it's even better considering Milan and Newcastle finished in a goalless draw.
Well,
So
for sure, but like I don't know, Dortmund are a very weird team, very streaky. They started off pretty well in the game, I find,
yeah,
but like the first 15, 20 minutes came out strong, but PSG to after like the 25th minute just took control of the game. Like the Dortmund were barely even able to keep the ball, barely able to get out of their own half. Didn't create too many chances, maybe had a couple half chances, but other than that, it was a good victory from PSG. Um, maybe a little. I was a little bit surprised of how well they did,
honestly, I was as well,
but
especially
like,
defensively.
yeah, but
Yeah,
like then again, Dortmund haven't had the greatest of seasons, so
no,
they're it's a
yeah.
little bit, a little bit iffy. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I even had Doniel Malen on my fantasy team up front because I was like, you know what? Having seen PSG play against Nice the way they did, I thought the defense was going to be a little shaky for this game. So I'm like, I'll count on Doniel Malen to maybe score a goal or some, boost me in some points, especially because I got him when I had purchased almost everyone else. So I was looking for someone at that price. And I thought, you know what, Daniel Malen, I like him. He's pretty underrated, I find. And there are times where he can really just produce something out of nothing.
For sure, for sure.
And I thought this was going to be one of the
He's
games.
good in
Even
front of
as a
goal.
PSG fan, I
I
thought
like
that.
his movement in the box.
Yeah.
He has a nose for goal, but again, a very streaky player, just like the whole team.
Yeah. Agreed.
Next, I guess Milan Newcastle.
Yeah.
They 0-0 draw.
Newcastle parked the bus really in that
Exactly,
in that
parked the
game.
bus. Milan should have really scored a couple of goals,
Yeah.
but Nick Pope, man of the match, I think has to be.
Yeah. And I
Uh,
mean, this was AC Milan's opportunity as well because Sandro Tonali was not playing for Newcastle too. So
yeah.
I mean, I was
No, he
thinking
played. He played. He
I
just
thought he
came.
was out.
No, no, he came
Oh, he
off.
did.
He came off in the
Oh, yeah, I see the
70th.
list there. Okay, okay, so he did play. Okay, okay, because
Remember,
I
he didn't
I
have
remember
the.
there was a lot of doubts that on whether he played or not, and I mean that game I was just sort of looking here and there,
Really have
so
the
I didn't really
greatest
notice
games.
it. Yeah, I didn't really notice any of the players per se. I know Rafael Leao, he squandered this major opportunity where he
He
went through
squandered.
all the players in the middle
I
of the
saw that one.
box,
Yeah,
misses his kick, and I was like, no way. So yeah, I mean that's all I gotta say about that game, really.
yeah. Not much to say here. Next, you got Lazio, Atletico Madrid. Really uneventful until the goalkeeper equalized.
Classic Atletico too.
90. What was it? 95th minute.
Yeah,
So
and classic Atletico too, right? You score a
exactly.
goal, you park the bus, play defensively, Diego Simeone type tactics, and next thing you know, there's the equalizer
Like I'll argue
for
that Lazio
Provedel.
had the better share of the chances throughout the game. Uh, again, pretty uneventful though. Not too many chances.
Yeah.
Nothing to write home about.
No.
You got Leipzig Young Boys. I think it was a classic Leipzig game.
Yeah.
They played pretty well. They've been pretty good this year. Losing Daniel Olmo to injury for a couple of weeks is actually, how long is he injured for? I'd like uh I'd
Uh,
like to see.
yeah. Well, while you're checking that, I'm just gonna
Late
cover
September, yeah.
quickly.
I didn't think it was that bad. It was a sprained knee injury, so
Okay.
it, saying back end of September. We're pretty much end of September, so it should be back
Oh,
anytime
okay.
now.
Like a 2 week type injury. You're out for 2 weeks or so.
But he's been out for like I think 2 weeks now.
Okay.
I had him on my Bundesliga fantasy team, and I had to take him out.
Yeah.
Man City and Red Star, three
Yeah.
one.
The
You
big
know,
takeaway from that is definitely Julian
oh
Alvarez,
for sure, had a great
with
great
his
game.
brace. Just because we all thought Haaland was gonna be that guy for the game or so, but I even had him on my fantasy team as
Hey,
captain.
Julian Alvarez has been stepping up lately. Like
Absolutely.
in games where Haaland struggles, which is pretty rare, but it happens where he can't he they can't seem to provide him a good service. Sometimes his touch is a little bit off. Sometimes,
It happens. We're all
uh,
human.
exactly. But Alvarez steps up. He's been great for City ever since he came. So
Yeah, I've been impressed with him. He's definitely
uh,
lived up to the expectations, in my opinion.
for sure, maybe exceeded even. Barcelona 5-0 Royal Antwerp. I
Mm.
don't think we're like Jean Felix had a great game, but I don't think we're too surprised by that result. Maybe 5-0 is a bit of a high score line, but great
Yeah.
performance by Barcelona.
Yeah, but Antwerp are considered one of like the weakest teams in Champions League in
Oh,
this
for
year's
sure.
Champions League as well. So I mean, for me, a 5-0
Well,
scoreline, especially at home, I'm
there's
not
no.
surprised at
Yeah,
all.
exactly. That yeah. At home, 5-0. It's not too surprising. But then again, there's no weak teams in Champions League,
No, you're there
right?
for a reason, right?
Exactly. Shakhtar Porto 3-1. That's you know pretty good
Taremi
game.
stepped
Bunch
up
of
big in that
chances.
one.
Yeah.
Maybe
That was
Milan, this is one time where they regret not having him because he was one of their top targets, but then he ended up staying. There was like this huge issue where apparently Milan were talking to the wrong agent
Oh, I didn't even hear about
for
that. Really?
Taremi. Yeah, it was something like that where they were talking to the wrong agent,
That's
and
funny.
then obviously the whole contract talks because it was towards the very end, right,
Yeah.
just before the deadline, everything just failed, like stopped, everything failed, and then yeah,
They could have used this finishing against Newcastle. I'm just
that's what
saying,
I was
scored a nice
thinking.
goal.
Yeah,
I guess to the next day, the Wednesday games. Obviously, the big game here, Bayern Man U.
highly
You
anticipated.
know, if you just look at the score, you're like, oh, classic European game, 7 goal thriller, right?
Yeah,
I think the scoreline's a bit misleading. Both teams scored some questionable goals, especially
yeah,
Bayern's first goal.
yeah,
I think United got a little bit lucky on some of their goals. Lots of chances though. I think 4-3 is a little bit does does United a bit. I don't think they played a 4-3
it
game.
makes them
I
look
think
a
it's
little better than they did.
yeah, like in my
Yeah,
opinion, 3-1, 4-2 would have been more just. But credit to United, they still played well. Getting 3 goals in the Allianz Arena is never
yeah,
an easy feat.
no,
And yeah, like they I don't know, United are just I don't understand what's really going terribly wrong with them. I think their midfield needs strengthening.
yeah,
Casemiro, although scored a brace, I think was pretty poor in the midfield. Although scoring a brace, which it's hard to have a bad game when you score a brace, but I don't think he fulfilled his job in the midfield that well. He was getting turned too many times. Players get by him too many times. I feel like his positioning was a little bit off, considering he's the defensive man in the midfield.
yeah. Well, honestly, I mean, with you saying that though, like I'm just looking at the fantasy team because I had him on my bench, and it's really his 2 goals that
It
gave
is.
him the
It is.
points, right?
100%.
So he had 12 points, and I had him sitting on my bench when I could have just subbed him in. But I was like, you know what, man, you are gonna get absolutely destroyed. People are gonna run laps around him. So I thought, yeah, you know what, Casemiro, he won't do anything. And for a while, it looked as such. And then I see towards the end of the game, I checked my fantasy team before the scores. I see Casemiro 12 points, and last time I checked the
Yeah,
game, it
yeah.
was like it was 3-1 for Bayern. I'm like, what just happened? And I see it's 4-3. I'm
It
like,
was a
okay,
weird game.
Casemiro must have scored like 1 or 2 goals.
It was a weird game. Whenever United would score, Bayern would like wake up and just go score again. It's like,
Yeah,
okay, well the game's done now. Let's relax. And United scores another one. Like Bayern's like, oh, okay, I guess we got to do this again.
yeah,
Very weird game. United's midfield just looked all over the place. Obviously, they have really good attacking talent. Rashford, Bruno, Hoyland is pretty good. I think. I think he's made a good impression, even in the games he hasn't scored. I think he's looked very lively.
yeah,
Gets creates a lot of chances for himself, or not really for himself, just good runs. Is
yeah,
able yeah, is able to get himself in good positions to score, and well, he got rewarded against Bayern. Got his
yeah.
one goal. But yeah, just overall, I think United were a little bit underwhelming. But then again, no one really expected them to go to the Allianz and win, or actually even get a point. So
Yeah,
all in
yeah,
all, not too bad of a game for
yeah.
United. I think Bayern played well, but honestly, this Bayern core, Kane, Sane, Nabri, Musiala, Coman, once these guys start clicking,
I'm liking it already.
I think they have one of the most dangerous attacks in Europe right now, if not the
Yeah,
most dangerous.
and
Like you
there's a
look at
very
them on
high
paper,
ceiling as well too.
exactly. Like you look at them on paper, and once these guys start clicking and they really find their chemistry together, I think a lot of teams are gonna have a very hard time controlling them. Especially the way Kane drops deep, is able to provide Sane and Nabri and Musiala running in behind. I think it's too many things for opponents to think about, right?
Yeah,
So yeah, that's that. You got Arsenal PSV,
yeah. I mean,
right?
Arsenal with a big result there.
Good performance. First game back in the Champions League. They could have
Very
no
solid.
complaints there.
Nope, not at all.
Um,
I mean, I know they struggled today against Tottenham, but as far as their Champions League performance goes, this was a very solid one. So
they didn't play too well today against Tottenham.
no, not at all.
Odegaard had a pretty bad game, but we'll get to that.
Yeah, but
Sevilla Lens in the same group.
yeah, I mean, I'm honestly surprised with Lens's performance,
Yeah,
or at least as far as the result goes. Just because they're on the road against Sevilla, they're struggling mightily this season. I think they're obviously still coping with the losses of Openda, of Fofana,
for sure.
which were their two best players essentially. They were being courted by some of the biggest European teams. Openda ended up going to Leipzig, which was a very smart move for him.
Well, when a team like that finishes second, the teams are going to come in
Of
for their players.
course,
That always happens.
yeah. And then there was also Fofana, but he ended up going to Saudi Arabia at Al Nasser. So
Can't really blame him for
yeah,
that. Yeah, I think you're right. Lens put in a pretty surprising performance. I would have given the edge to Sevilla,
of course.
but Sevilla Europa League merchants, they want to go back there.
I'm sure they do.
Group C, you got Madrid and Union Berlin. Classic Union Berlin game. Uh,
Well,
Honestly,
yeah.
Madrid. Like we'll talk about this later against in the Madrid derby, but it's just that creativity. They're lacking that number nine, right? And I think you could really see that they're struggling a little bit. Bayern went through the same dilemma last year. We thought, okay, we have so much attacking talent. They have Vini and Rodrigo. Bayern had Sane, Nabri, Coman, Musiala, but in this day and age, I think a number nine is essential. Like you need a true number nine. Really like just syncs up the attack, is able to draw attention to himself and make space for others, which I
Yeah,
think Harry Kane does very well for Bayern. Now, like even like when you watch Harry Kane, there's two guys on him in the box, and then when he drops deep and lets other players make runs, it creates a lot of commotion, right?
yeah, yeah.
So yeah, I think Madrid are really missing a nine, and I think like this might not age well, it might, but I think they're gonna start realizing it more and more throughout the season that missing that top class number nine is gonna cost them goals.
Yeah, I mean,
It's
there's
gonna
a
cost
lot
them
of
goals.
pressure on Joselu right now.
Yeah, yeah.
Because I mean, he was at Espanyol, they got relegated. I mean, he had a very good season though. Um, and I mean, Madrid gets him. I believe it's a loan, right? He's on loan at Madrid.
I believe so.
Yeah, so I mean, there's so much pressure on him considering you have your defending Ballon d'Or winner
Yeah, exactly. Like
gone, and
he
he's the
has
one who
big shoes
needs
to
to
fill.
step up.
Yeah,
Yeah. So it's just, I mean, it's a lot of pressure for him. I don't doubt his ability because I think he's a very good striker, talisman. But yeah, I mean, for a team at that caliber, for the shoes that he has to
Like
fill in,
we saw
it's
Bayern as well. We had
daunting.
Chupo, and you remember the hot start
Yeah,
Chupo got
yeah,
to last year.
yeah.
This guy couldn't miss. But as much as I love Chupo, he's a great player. But I just think like going from Lewandowski to Chupo, there's some adjustment there,
Yeah.
right?
Especially with the sustainability of it all. I mean, like you
Exactly.
said, a good start, but that only lasts what, like 4 or 5 games, and then
Well, it actually lasted quite a
oh
while. But
yeah,
like yeah, like I have to say the first 3 months or maybe even
okay,
4 months of the
okay. So
season.
there was some degree of
But like,
sustainability there.
he never stopped playing well, but he just wasn't hitting those numbers, right?
Oh, okay.
But yeah, I think Madrid are gonna go through the same thing. Although Vinny didn't play, I believe he's injured
Uh,
at the moment.
and I mean, also a lot of pressure for Rodrigo too in that sense too, because I mean, Rodrigo he was like a super sub before,
Yeah,
and now he's
but
a starter.
he's
So he's taking
it's
that next step. We'll see if
exactly
he can. We'll see how well he can do it.
it's his opportunity. I think
Of
he definitely
course,
has the talent. And honestly, I think him and Vini could be very dangerous. And once
I
next
agree.
year, I expect Madrid to go for a nine.
Yeah,
Either probably not during the winter break, but or not the winter break, the January transfer window,
yeah.
but at least by next summer, I'm sure that they have a couple nines on their radar. I'm sure it's something that they're aware of. Real Madrid's never the type of team to shy away from a big transfer, right? So
No, I mean, who knows what's gonna happen? It could be.
exactly.
There's. I mean, there's always that the Mbappe saga. He
Yeah,
hasn't
yeah,
officially
that's
signed that
true.
extension.
Exactly, yeah. So you never know, but I don't know. Mbappe at nine is a different topic.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's Madrid.
As a PSG fan, I can vouch for you on that
Yeah, like
one.
it's a don't get me wrong, great
Last year
player
there were struggles for sure.
for sure. Yeah, like don't get me wrong, great player. But as a number nine, a true striker,
Yeah.
I feel like he plays better when he's playing off of someone,
Yeah, exactly,
right?
and that's what I meant when with last year about, and then with your argument about the number nine. That was
Yeah,
PSG with their issue, yes, last year, and they had Messi too on
yeah,
top of it, and they still couldn't generate as many goals as they should have.
yeah,
And I mean, large part because of the number nine, right?
for sure. And then to be honest, number nines are a rare commodity nowadays. Like there's not that many number nines on the market, right? Like you got Osimhen, right? But he's gonna cost a massive transfer fee. Like you're paying 80 million plus minimum.
Yeah.
I could see him going to PSG or something like that. I could see him
He was
getting a
being
big move.
courted by PSG, but at the end
Yeah,
of the day, Napoli were demanding so much for him that the PSG just opted with Gonzalo Ramos and now Rondal Colomoni as well.
but again, none of them are real nines, right?
No, and I mean,
Honestly,
well, Gonzalo Ramos, he like his style of play is number nine, but thing is, he's just not as developed.
yeah, I guess. But I still see him like drifting off to the wings a lot. Like I don't see him really sticking central.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm just thinking about this game that they played. Like this game, he stuck to the number nine, but then again, you had Bralle Barcola, you had Usman Dembele, who are true natural
Yeah,
wingers,
yeah.
and then even Ronald Colomwani as well was on that too.
But
So they were switching around a lot, but Gonzalo Ramos for the large part was still in that
but
center forward position.
yeah, fair enough. But I also saw Kolomwani a lot in the central
Yeah,
position. Like
yeah,
I guess it's a type of front three where you could just
yeah.
move
There was a
around a
lot of
lot,
running around, and Mase
a lot
couldn't
of
keep up.
fluidity. Yeah, like
Yeah,
actually that's what gave Bayern somewhat a bit of success in the first half of the season last year. Like teams were kind of struggling to cope with the whole like it was just uncertain, right?
yeah.
But yeah, I don't think it's too sustainable.
No, no, definitely not for even a full season, really. Never
Yeah.
mind for more than one season.
Exactly, yeah. And then after that, you got Napoli Braga.
Yeah,
Napoli with a good win. I feel like they played. I feel like they
they
played well.
played all right. They played
I
all
caught the
right.
second half. Like they played okay, yeah. Maybe got a little bit lucky to steal the game.
Yeah, like I support Napoli too, and me and Charbel, our friend
Yeah, yeah,
Charbel,
yeah.
yeah, we were watching it. And we were commenting, like we were talking to each other, and we were pretty disappointed with their performance in the second half. I mean, the equalizer, but then we stole the game with the
Yeah.
own goal essentially. So I mean, the first half was solid, especially with the Di Lorenzo goal at the end on my fantasy team too.
Oh, look at that.
With Bellingham, and I made Bellingham captain at the last minute.
Bellingham
So
was
I got
scoring left, right,
16
and center.
points with the
Yeah,
guy. I switched Haaland to Bellingham captain 5 minutes before the game for Real Madrid, and then there's like nothing right that's happening, and then this scrappy goal at the end that Real Madrid ends up scoring
Bellingham's
against
been scoring
Berlin.
goals. Bellingham's been scoring a couple
Yeah,
goals. I think he has like what 6 goals so far this year.
yeah, and I mean the La Liga goals were not scrappy goals
Oh
like that
no, for
Champions
sure,
League goal.
for
So
sure. But then again,
yeah,
like I was hearing shouts like, "Oh, Bellingham's are not." Wait, this is not sustainable.
no, he's not your number 9 for sure. I was actually surprised he was scoring so many.
Me too. But it's just Twitter trolls.
Yeah, yeah, obviously, obviously.
You got after that Real Sociedad, Inter Milan, 1-1 again.
I
Pretty
didn't really
boring.
catch much from that game, to be honest. I have to confess.
Me neither. But I'm looking at the stats here. Like I guess actually I don't know. I didn't catch too much of this game, but 1-1 seems like maybe
Yeah.
Real Sociedad got
The
a
one I
little
think,
bit unlucky, maybe, but
yeah,
can't really comment too much on it.
yeah. I'm looking at the Benfica Salzburg, and Benfica have had the much better numbers, but they lost 2-0. Like we're talking about shots here, but shots overall, just one more, 15-14. Shots on target, two more, 7-5. Possession, 57-43. You got the passes. This is where it really gets interesting. 511 to 394. Pass accuracy, 81-75.
But Salzburg are really like they're a transition team, right? They don't
They've always
necessarily
been like that
yeah
too.
they don't really need too much of the ball to make something happen,
Yeah.
which is a good quality, honestly. Like it's especially the
Yeah.
type of personnel they have, very quick players, right? I think
Yeah. They've always been like that. I mean, look at last year with Noah Okafor. He was their perfect counter-attacking number 9 for
Yeah.
them. Before that, a few years ago, no other than Haaland, right? I mean,
course.
that's
Well,
as good as it gets.
that's hot.
Yeah.
Oh, then
So
you had Galatasaray Copenhagen
right, that was a very
2-2
good
game,
game.
entertaining.
Yeah.
Galatasaray stole the draw at the end there.
Yeah, up a man. They
Yeah.
were up a man since the 73rd minute. Then two late goals, literally
Yeah.
2 minutes apart, really, 86th,
But I feel like
88th minute.
it
Their
was
goals were
deserved.
nice
Yeah.
too.
It was deserved though.
Yeah.
I think it was deserved.
They worked for that. They clawed back, and Copenhagen, they were hanging on for dear life, really, after going down a man.
Yeah. And then you got a couple Europa League games.
Yeah, so I was thinking the most interesting ones of the Europa League game. There was Ajax Marseille. That was one
for sure.
one hell of a game.
That's probably the best game of the match day.
Oh, for sure. And honestly, I think like just performance-wise and with the score and all that and how the game the turn of events, it was one if that was in the Champions League, it would be one of the best Champions League matches
sure.
that
Well,
would have happened too.
Marseille, Ajax, pretty much Champions League caliber-ish teams,
Yeah,
right?
well balanced.
Yeah, exactly. Especially Ajax. Marseille
Yeah.
is a little bit. It's been a little bit off the mark the last couple of years, but
Yeah, they've been
Still-
iffy.
you had Liverpool against Lask.
Yeah, I know Lask went up 1-0. I didn't really
Yeah.
catch much of that game though.
They were up 1-0 for a while, and then I guess
Second half, really, they took it.
Liverpool got a penalty, and they just kind of took control after that. Right?
Yeah, the ones I was really following along with the Ajax game especially was Olympiacos Freiburg and
Yeah.
Athens against Brighton. That one was interesting because Brighton, we were expecting them to play well. I know it was their first game in the Europa League. But thing is, they were at home too, and Athens surprisingly beat them. I mean, I expected Brighton to do well. I know Athens has been very solid these past couple of years in the Greek league. They won the Greek league last year, I believe. And I mean, they got like that whole new stadium in Greece too. It's like by far the nicest stadium in Greece.
Beating Brighton is
Solid
no easy feat,
investment.
but Brighton's been playing exceptional.
And
Like,
look, their 2 goals were penalty shots by the
Yeah.
same guy too. On
João
top of
Pedro,
it,
yeah.
yeah.
But you want to know what's crazy about Brighton? This like to beat Brighton is no easy feat, right? Like these guys are so well organized. It's like you could take anyone out of their team, put anyone in, and they'll perform, right?
Yeah.
It's
Says
a
a
very
lot about
system-based team. They don't necessarily rely on. Obviously, they have good individual talent, but they don't necessarily rely on one person very much. Like they lost Caicedo,
Yeah.
right? It's like they never lost him.
Yeah.
They're still playing the same thing, right?
Yeah.
Top midfielder.
I think
didn't
James
really miss a
Milner
beat.
was a very good addition
Well,
for
yeah,
free. And I mean,
Well, he's
his
a vet.
experience,
He's a vet,
yeah.
yeah.
His experience is valuable, is like really valuable. So I'm I'm impressed with Brighton. I mean, I knew they were going to be pretty solid, but I didn't think they were going to be this good right off the bat.
Right.
Um,
This is an
this game's
unexpected loss. Yeah.
yeah, it's a bit of a disappointment, but who knows? I mean,
Athens. Well, you never know. Athens could be one of these dark horse teams, right?
yeah,
Maybe make a deep run into the Europa League. I
yeah.
could see it happening
And I mean, Brighton, Athens are with Marseille and Ajax, so that's going to be a one crazy group to follow.
for sure.
The other interesting group that I noticed is Group A, which has there was the West Ham game against Baka Topola. I don't even know where they're from really, and then Freiburg against Olympiacos.
Yeah, yeah.
West Ham, no doubt they won their game. They won, I believe, 3-1, and then you had Olympiacos Freiburg. That was a 3-2 win, quite solid, I find.
I think like I caught a bit of the Freiburg game. I feel like Freiburg are a bit lucky to come away with a win.
Yeah.
I think draw would have been a bit more fair result. Freiburg have been a little iffy this year. Started off with 2 decent wins and then got absolutely annihilated by Stuttgart. Well, anyway, Stuttgart's been playing exceptionally well this year. Gorasi has I
Yeah.
think, 10 goals in 5 games now.
Yeah, that's
Crazy.
one crazy
Like
start.
it's crazy. 11 goal involvements.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was a little bit. I think Freiburg were a bit lucky to come away with a win.
Yeah, and I
But
mean, as for Bundesliga, I mean, if we go delve into that now, I mean, Stuttgart, like you said, they lost that game against Leipzig, but
yeah,
man, they've been
and you know
playing
what's
so
crazy?
well.
That
Other
game
than
against
that,
Leipzig, they started off extremely well, right? And
yeah,
then as soon as Leipzig equalized, their quality just showed, right? Like Stuttgart were trying to push a little bit too much, and they got caught a couple times. I remember that game. Nubel made 2 mistakes, a
yeah,
bit questionable. Um, but yeah, no, Stuttgart have been absolutely amazing. Like it's but you know what? It's not unexpected. Like you look at last year, their expected points was much higher than what they actually got.
yeah,
They got a little bit unlucky with injuries. So honestly, I'm not too surprised about their good start. Uh, Honestly, the Bundesliga this year, I don't think anyone is really surprised with any team. The only team that might be a little surprising is Dortmund not doing so well.
yeah.
They've been a little shaky, but Dortmund are always somewhat shaky.
Maybe could you say the same about Freiburg being in terms of surprise disappointment?
I think it's a little too early to call.
Okay.
Um, Freiburg's the type of team that might not start off too well. They got a bad loss that affected
Yeah.
their morale, but they string together 2 wins in a row, especially now after the win against Olympiacos. I could see them climbing back up in the table, maybe challenging for Europa League. I think this year they'll be challenging for a conference or Europa League spot.
Okay. Fair
Though
enough.
I don't I
I
don't
thought the
expect them
same
to
too.
drop too deep. Actually, Union Berlin is a little bit surprising.
Yeah, they've been
Uh,
they're just under 500. I mean, 4 goals against, they break even. So let's see what they've been doing. Yeah, it's like they win some big, they lose some
Honestly, it's just
big. Like,
the way they were winning games last year is a bit hard to replicate.
yeah,
Just like bombarding the box, overloading their own box, park the bus type. What's it called? Atletico Madrid almost style play.
yeah,
Just like really scrappy
yeah.
football.
Maybe one club that I am quite disappointed in is Borussia Mönchengladbach. They're way.
Yeah,
I know they lost Marcus Thuram, which is their star striker,
Hoffman as well.
and Jonas Hoffmann
But
to
honestly,
Leverkusen.
even with both of
But
them, they weren't doing that well.
I know they had more of a mid-table finish, if I
They
recall
haven't been
correctly.
they haven't been too great. It's
Yeah,
been a
10th
couple
place.
years.
It's just I get, but I mean, this could probably just be a start, and then they end up finishing mid-table as well.
I think they finished.
It's just considering they have only 2 points out of the first 5 games, and I mean, I'm just trying to see like the teams they played. I mean, they lost to Bayern and Leipzig only 2-1 and 1-0, which is not too bad.
Well,
They lost to
Gladbach versus
Leverkusen
Bayern is a
3
little bit.
nothing.
It's a curse. It's
I
a
know.
Bayern
Yeah,
curse.
yeah. Even with well now at least Sommer gone, Bayern is winning now.
Yeah, man. Sommer was a pain when he was with Gladbach. I remember those games. It was so
That
frustrating.
game last year, 20 saves or something.
He broke a record.
Yeah.
He broke a Bundesliga record, maybe even a European record.
Oh,
Was
it's up there. If it's not broken, it's way up
Like
there for sure.
he was nuts. But yeah, the Bundesliga this year, it's like a little bit expected. But yeah, we all expected Leverkusen to build on last season.
Yeah, yeah.
So
I knew they were gonna do very well, but I mean, it's still impressive to see.
yeah, exactly. Xabi Alonso has done a great job there. I think
Yeah,
if anyone's going to challenge for the title this year with Bayern, it would be Leipzig and Leverkusen. I think Leverkusen is slightly better than Leipzig.
yeah. Agreed, agreed. I had that in
But
my
time,
predictions in my article there.
time will tell, right?
Yeah,
Leipzig's still a good team. I don't think they're very far off from each other. I think Leverkusen maybe slightly edges it, but
yeah. Agreed,
who knows? Yeah.
agreed. My thoughts exactly. Actually,
Uh, I think Bayern are about to go on a good run of form. Uh, the win versus United, although it was 4-3, I think Bayern played very well.
I was
You know,
impressed, especially
maybe
that first half too.
yeah, like maybe a couple of defensive errors, or it got a little bit lucky with some of the goals, but a couple of defensive errors that could be tweaked. But overall, I think it was a very good performance. Beating United, like, it's still a top side, right?
Of course,
It's not going to be a walk in the park.
no doubt. Yeah,
And then coming this weekend, 7-0. Harry Kane was absolutely phenomenal. He scored. You know what's crazy? He had 5 goal involvements in that game, 3 goals, 2 assists on 39 touches.
impressive. No, I
Like he
mean
had the least
nothing
touches
short.
in the entire game. 39 touches, getting 5 goal contributions
Yeah,
is quite incredible.
yeah.
Um, yeah, no, Bayern. I think I think really they're starting to gel. They're starting to click, and hopefully they can string together a couple of wins.
It's this Bochum team. They beat them every year, like massive score. It's an
Yeah,
annual tradition. Last year it
yeah.
was the same score, and even before that it was something. This was the same, maybe even 8-0 or something, if I
Thing is,
remember correctly.
you don't want to face Bayern from game like 3 till 12 usually. Game 3 to 12 for some reason we go on these crazy runs in the Bundesliga. Like even last year we had a couple big wins early on in the season. And I think there was a game when well that was the DFB Pokal, but Choupo-Moting scored like 5 goals or 6 goals or something crazy like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the Bundesliga. We moved to
The EPL. I
yeah
mean,
the
we were
EPL.
talking about Brighton, how good they were doing. I mean,
Yeah, absolutely.
Brighton, this 5 wins, no draws, one loss, which is obviously a super impressive feat. I just don't understand how they lost to Athens, really, and the fact also that their only goals came from penalty shots. Like they couldn't even find any real source of inspiration up front. But I mean, you had the Town. They lost to West Ham. Their one loss was to West Ham. I mean, they beat Manchester United. Danny Welbeck scoring too.
Yeah, that's
That's
awesome.
adding insult to injury. But before that, they beat Newcastle 3-1,
Yeah, yeah.
which is quite impressive. I know
Newcastle got a
Newcastle.
massive win today.
Oh yeah, I was about to say they started to
Crazy.
struggle. After they had a very good first game against Aston Villa, but then they had been struggling. But then today now, 8-0. Again, I know it's Sheffield United.
But
It's
still,
like I expect them to finish either 19th or 20th this season. But I mean,
you know
eight
who's
goals is
surprising though?
still one great performance.
For sure. But you know who's surprising? I would have thought Burnley would do a lot better than what they're doing
Me
now.
too. Me too. I was actually thinking about that
Like
today.
especially the season they had last year,
Yeah.
I would expect them to be like,
Even the additions they had in the
yeah,
offseason
that as
too. They
well.
had solid signings. But yeah, I mean, maybe I don't know. Like I like Company, but I don't know if he's fully ready to coach a perennial EPL team yet. He did very well with Burnley last year, so there's no doubt in my mind, that he would be a good coach at least, and even in the near future for a perennial EPL club. Like
But
we're talking about years established.
yeah, but like again, like you got to stick with them for
Oh, for
I think
sure.
at least till like at least 3 quarters of the
Oh,
season.
for sure. I agree
You
with
know,
that. I agree with that.
especially this like the way he transformed the club. Burnley were known for that kind of like a Union Berlin style of football.
Hmm.
Now they're an attractive team to watch. It's just they're not able to get the results. They're struggling right now in the Premier League. Uh, yeah, company has some things to figure out for sure.
Yeah.
Chelsea has some things to figure out. That team is in shambles right now. I'm so
Like,
sorry, all you Chelsea fans. All
I
you
can't
Chelsea
stop
fans,
laughing.
I'm sorry. I know this is hard to watch, but tough times never last.
Well, that's what they thought last year.
Yeah, but I don't think like they're just too big of a club at this point to like be terrible for numerous seasons in a row. And Chelsea are the type of team to finish 11th and go win the league the next year, and they've done it before.
Yes, they have.
So you know that's Chelsea this year. United, it's just not clicking at the moment. Uh, like you even look at
Yeah.
the expected goals, and the expected assists for the players like Bruno and Rashford. Like they're pretty high. They're not hitting the numbers,
No.
and their defense has been a little shaky. Their midfield is very shaky. I feel like they really need to bring in another midfielder, um, someone that could receive the ball, play the ball out, really like dictate the game, but also at the same time have more of a physical presence than Ericsson. Because Ericsson is really the only player that could do that
Yeah.
right now. But he's a liability on
Yeah.
defense. Like he's a massive
I mean, I
liability.
was reading I actually wrote about Manchester United today for tomorrow's newsletter, and it's going to be available on the website, thegoaheadgoal.com. We'll have the link in the bio, or in the video description. I mean, but thing is, with Manchester United, we're talking about midfield and stuff, and it's also you have the issue with Jadon Sancho that arises too.
Yep.
There's a whole feud going on there, right? And it's created instability even with the other players and how they're perceiving it and how they're also questioning their relationship with Eric Ten Hag
For
as
sure.
well.
Yeah. Yeah.
There have been apparently some other players who have come forward and saying that he tends to have a preference, and
Yeah.
he's
He has
not.
favorites. Yeah.
Yeah, and he's not willing to call them out when they're not doing well in training or in matches.
For
Whereas with
sure.
Jadon Sancho, there was no hesitation on
But
doing
then again,
that.
if you think about it, like if those players that are favorites are like players like Bruno and Rashford, like those guys are almost undroppable compared to Jadon Sancho. Like
Yeah,
Rashford has proven himself to be, a
yeah,
top player in the Premier League. Bruno Fernandes as well. Like they're both top 10, top five players in the league, right? Or arguably. So if those are the favorites, it's a little bit iffy. But yeah, I heard about that too. He's starting. Maybe it's too early to say he's losing the dressing room, but it's been a little shaky.
yeah.
And honestly, the way he handled the Sanchez situation, I think, is a little poor.
Yeah, I agree. It was a very massive PR gaffe.
Yeah, like you can't
Um,
just go out in public and just bash your
yeah,
player like that. Like especially saying stuff like, "Oh, he's unserious in training." Nah, this guy's never gonna start.
yeah.
Or
Especially after in a post game after a loss
yeah,
too, of all things. That's you're just pouring gasoline on a fire
yeah, and
there.
like losing that game had nothing to do with Sancho,
No,
right? Like
not at
there's
all.
like it's almost like he's gaslighting him at this point. I don't know. I don't like it. I think Ten Hag is on thin ice.
Yeah. We're talking
And
about streaky. I
yeah,
think Manchester United are, especially under Ten Hag, are
yeah,
quite a streaky team
they
as
are.
well.
They are.
Where if they start winning, they're gonna win a few games, and they'll play very well. But if they start losing, then they're gonna start losing a few games
But the
as well.
problem is with United, like they have no consistency to their play. Like, and also Ten Hag is his player profiling not too great. Like Anthony was not a good sign.
No, no, not at all.
Like, and I see people on social media telling me, oh well, he provides Ten Hag with certain tactical relief. Nah, 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 nah. I'm sorry, he's not. His output is nowhere near what it should be. He loses the ball way too often. He's almost a
Liability.
liability
I
going
think he
forward.
is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like it's I don't know. I think it's ridiculous, and I find it a little weird how people are like again, obviously these allegations now and all that. We're not talking
Yeah.
about that.
Yeah.
That's that's something
Totally off
completely
the
different.
pitch.
Yeah, but I'm just saying on the pitch, not a great signing. I feel like Ten Hag's transfers have been very poor.
Yeah.
Like especially like Mason Mount's a good signing. I feel like he's a great player.
Yeah.
He adds depth, can play multiple positions, attacking midfield, can play left or right. Uh, but it's not the profile they needed.
Yeah, but honestly, I mean, because I was actually that's very interesting you brought that up because I was reading on this other article about and also I've seen some social media stuff about the former Manchester United players on how they would come forward and how they would have these targets, these players that they want, but then they end up not signing them. And I think was it Van Gaal who even said that I had to resort to my sixth or seventh option of
Okay.
signing. I'll have to confirm that, but I believe I thought I had seen that somewhere, so, and it was like a quote like that. But
I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah,
I would not be surprised. Well,
especially at
no,
that point
actually,
too with Woodward and stuff.
yeah,
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 that was like an absolute disaster what was
for
happening at
sure.
that time.
But I don't know. I think there's one thing that I'm curious to see with Jay is how Amrabat works out.
Yeah, yeah,
He's a good player, right? Like, and to be honest, he's the type of player profile that they would need. I'm just I just want to see how he's able to transition the ball, how he's able to
yeah,
receive the ball from the defense, play it out. I think that's what we're yet to see because we all know he's physically dominant, pretty good defensively, not afraid of going into a challenge.
yeah.
So it's the profile they need. I think the only thing that might be a little well, not questionable. I'm not doubting him, but we'll just I want to see if he could if he's able to really be that calmness that United needs in the
Yeah.
midfield.
And also in terms of complementing other players as well, because I mean, I don't want him to just be a copy paste of Casemiro essentially,
Exactly.
because
Yeah,
that
it's
wouldn't
true.
work out either.
It's true for sure.
And I think that's what Man U have had a lot of problems with their signings is that a lot of these players that they sign, it's a copy paste of what they have, and
Yeah.
then the players just don't complement each other. Then you have players like Sancho or even someone like Van de Beek, who they just end up being sat out
Yeah.
for an extended period of time because
Well, Donny
it's a
Van de Beek,
it's
this guy's
copy
story is
paste.
tragic,
Yeah, yeah, it is
almost.
with injuries and stuff too.
He's a
And
good player. He was good with
yeah,
Ajax. So I don't know what happened to him at United. Like, even when he got chances, I feel like he a bit underwhelming. I think maybe he just lost his confidence, right?
yeah,
Hopefully, he could revitalize his career now. Um, Other than United, I think you know what? I think Liverpool are having an underrated season. They're playing very well. Darwin Nunes is finally hitting his stride,
yes,
starting to
yes,
score
I've
goals.
noticed.
Um, again, he was heavily criticized last year. Didn't really have the impact that people wanted him to have. But then
Uh,
again, you got to give players time,
yeah,
right?
I mean, look, the one game that they haven't won so far this season was the first game against Chelsea,
Yep,
and I think they were the better team for sure in that game.
I think so as well.
Yeah,
I
I
think so
mean,
as well.
I remember
Well,
watching
actually,
that.
Chelsea had. You know what's funny? When people watched that game, they thought, okay, both teams look solid. Like Chelsea looked pretty solid as well, and I think they really underwhelmed after that. While
Yeah,
Liverpool just built on that
yeah.
performance.
But that game was very weird because that first half was something crazy.
Yeah,
Like it was 1-1, but there were a few goals called off from VAR, and it was just attack, attack, attack. And that second half was super cagey. Barely any occasions.
yeah,
I remember I was watching that with my dad actually, and because he came from Montreal, and it was just yeah, it was very underwhelming after that halftime.
for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Uh, Other than Liverpool, Tottenham, I think have been pretty good. I think they're overperforming a little bit, and that is due not solely, but a lot of it is due to James Madison.
Yeah.
James Madison has been sensational. Almost everything goes through him in Tottenham's attack. Honestly, he's been outstanding. Heung-min Son as well,
Yeah.
stepping up.
A brace against Arsenal
Yeah,
today.
his last couple games have been very very good. And I don't know why people were overlooking him coming into the season. Like obviously losing Kane, you can't it's a big loss, and you expect them to suffer a little bit, right? But Young-Min Son is a very capable player, and
Yeah.
honestly, he's been one of the most consistent scorers in the Premier League in the last couple of years.
Yeah, and I think part of that was also the maybe I'm speculating now, but part of it maybe also was due to those rumors of him possibly going to Saudi Arabia. So
Yeah,
people were sort of discounting if he's going to be staying beyond the transfer window because the Saudi transfer window goes even longer than the European one, right?
yeah,
Like it's by almost 2 weeks. So I thought maybe he would go. He would. I or other fans thought he would go to Saudi Arabia, but I mean, I didn't think he was gonna go, and because honestly, the reason why I sort of discounted him was the fact that Kane left. Like that, I have to admit, and it's also with the new coach,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Um,
They've been doing
he's
well.
been amazing.
They've
Um,
revitalized their team. They're like it's too early to call, but they're
I see a
playing better than
winning
last
and I
year.
see a winning mentality in this team
Yeah,
compared to like I mean they were always a good team under Pochettino, but now I've seen him now at PSG. I've seen him at Chelsea, and I don't think he has a winning mentality as a coach. I don't think he
You
has
think so?
that. Yeah, I don't think he has
I
that.
think he's a good coach. I think
I think he's a
there's
decent
better
coach. He's
coaches.
not a great coach, definitely not. And I don't think he's a coach who can win like top trophies with a team that's not significantly better.
You don't think so?
Yeah.
Hmm. I don't know. That's an interesting take. I would agree to some extent.
Maybe I have a bias as well because he was at PSG. I
Yeah.
had high expectations for him, but I mean, I just saw him coach now with Chelsea, and I thought maybe there would be some sort of turnaround at the club in terms of their performances, but it's gotten even worse.
Yeah, I do. You know what? I'd have to agree with you. Especially now with Chelsea. Like again, it's still early in the season, but getting 5 points out of 6 games, it's poor. It's poor.
No.
They really should be doing better. Even like I guess their squad isn't the strongest in the top six clubs in the Prem, but you know, again, 5 points in 6 games, it's unacceptable given the quality that they have.
Yeah,
Um,
I agree. And I
yeah,
mean,
Aston Villa, we know they've been playing well. Brighton we already covered. City is City. There's not much to say there.
yeah,
Erling
perfect
Haaland,
record. I mean, that's
yeah,
always
like
impressive to
it's
mention, because perfect records are perfect record, right?
yeah.
But in a way, it's almost expected. They haven't played any of the top teams except for unless you would consider maybe Newcastle is considered a top team on paper kind of thing. But they're playing Arsenal on October 8th. That's gonna
Arsenal's been
be
a little underwhelming. They really I feel like losing the title last year, like the way they collapsed at
oh, it
the
was
end,
terrible.
it's kind of like it's still in the back of their head. I feel like
Yeah, they haven't lost yet, but like you said,
the
they haven't
performances
been
haven't been convincing,
underwhelming. Yeah,
right? Like today,
yeah,
some of their star
especially
players
today.
were not like Odegaard had a terrible game.
Yeah, and they were at home too. On
Yeah,
top, Jorginho. Don't even talk to me about
yep,
Jorginho
yep.
today. Lord.
And we'll go La
And
Liga.
yeah,
You
La
know,
Liga. I mean, the other Barcelona's Barcelona. They're playing well.
Girona.
Yeah, Girona is impressive. Always with that club, it's always been. I know they can always perform well because when they first came to La Liga, they were that team that would play very well against the big teams,
Yeah,
and against the weaker teams a little less, and they would always end up like lower mid table or in the mid table. But now, I mean, they could end up upper mid table to even in the European position. I mean, look at how well they're doing. 5 wins, one draw, 16
yeah.
points, 16 goals for.
But
You have a differential of 9, which is second best in the league,
they're yet to play the big three though.
which is true.
Like you know they beat the likes of Real Sociedad.
At least they've beaten Sevilla
Yeah, but
in Sevilla.
he has been a little shaky this year.
They're always like even last year they were quite iffy as well. I remember.
They're not doing too well. Even like we saw them in the Champions League too.
Yeah,
A little very underwhelming. Like
yeah,
Lens dominated that game,
yeah.
right?
Sevilla, it's literally a repetition of last year. I remember before the World Cup, this team finished third in their group, but you thought for the longest time they would actually finish fourth.
Yeah.
It like so last place in their group, and I mean, last year they at least ended up winning ultimately the Europa League. But last year they finished 12th in La Liga, but for the longest time they were flirting with the relegation zone,
Yeah, yeah,
and they were mostly around 15th, 16th at the time when they were in the Champions League group stage as well.
for sure.
So
Yeah.
it's just been it's been an absolute copy from last season. So we were discussing La Liga. Let's talk
Oh
about
yeah,
the Madrid derby today.
yeah, yeah. So I think it was a great performance by Atletico Madrid, and like we said earlier in the episode, the number nine.
Yep.
You know,
Agreed.
I think Real Madrid really struggled to create chances, and really struggled against the low block. It's really where you need your nine. You need someone with presence in the box, someone that's able to receive the ball, turn, play a quick pass,
Yeah.
and they're just I don't think they have that.
No,
You
no.
know?
And I mean, on the other hand, you have the other Madrid team who is not known for attack. Atletico has always been defensive minded. But then when you put 3 goals past Real Madrid, that's always something worth bragging about.
Yeah, yeah.
And 2 of those goals came from Alvaro Morata, which is their number 9. But I mean, he's not a world class number 9.
Not
He's
a
a
world
solid
class
number
number nine,
9.
but Morata has his moments.
He does
Like
the
we've
job.
seen him have world class games.
Yes, yes.
And
that I agree with.
borderline world class seasons.
Yeah.
Right? So again, he's a player that you shouldn't really sleep on.
No.
But again, Madrid, like they're not going to be bad this year by any measure, but they're going to struggle,
Yeah,
and they're going to slightly underperform because of that number nine. Um, yeah, like they had all the ball. They had pretty double the shots Atletico Madrid had. No big chances.
the passing though, that's
Yeah,
pretty
that's
impressive.
what I mean. Like they had the ball. They
Yeah,
they 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 had they had the time to create and push and pressure at Atletico Madrid. Atletico Madrid absorbed the pressure well, first of all, but they're known for that. It's
yeah.
just in order to break that low block down, you need a true number nine, someone that's able to have a presence in the box. Like I said, able to receive, turn, just bigger body.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
agree.
and also having that nine in the box creates space for others.
Yeah.
Like just it distracts defenders,
Remember
right?
France in 2018 with Giroud? I mean,
Exactly.
everyone was making fun of Giroud for not scoring a single goal, but
He was essential,
yeah, he was
essential to that
essential.
team. Yeah, that's a great example. So yeah, that's La Liga. That's the gist of it.
And I
Moving
mean, the
on.
other big game, big derby today in
Oh,
League One in
yeah,
France, in
yeah.
Paris, between PSG and Marseille, Le Classique.
Hmm.
Um, we talk about
Big
Atletico
win.
Madrid getting a big win. This was even more lopsided. We're talking
Yep.
about 4-0 now. Like it was almost like as if it was a forfeit at that point. But I mean, it was a good game. PSG, they controlled that game from the first minute to the last.
Yeah.
Marseille only had one real chance where it was a cross, and then Vitinha, not the PSG Vitinha, of course. Their Vitinha, Marseille have their own Vitinha. He had a header off that cross from the right wing. I forgot who crossed it though, but it hit the crossbar and then out. And at that point, PSG was. I'm not sure if they were up 1-0 or 2-0 at that point, but it was at a point where I mean anything could have gone really. But
Well, they Marseille just didn't do anything.
no, other
I
like
wouldn't say
literally other than that, they haven't
honestly.
done
Like
anything.
I
No shots on target.
I would say PSG deserved the win. Maybe 4-0 is a bit too flattering, just a little bit. But on the other hand, Marseille just didn't create anything. Like
No,
there was no
nothing.
I couldn't see Marseille score at any time in
No, not at all. There was only that one chance, hit the crossbar, so it's not
the
even
game. Yeah,
technically considered a shot on target either. So they've
pretty
had
much.
zero shots on target.
Yeah.
PSG 77% possession. I mean, in League One, they're always possession center, but against Marseille, that's considered
No, it's very
very
low. Well,
impressive.
realistically, anything above 65%
Yeah.
is pretty dominant.
And now the classic Luis Enrique moment, 907 passes for 90% pass accuracy.
I'm very curious to see how he does with PSG. He's a good coach. I like obviously his 2015 year with Barcelona is legendary, right?
Yeah.
But we haven't seen he hasn't taken a job since then, right?
There was Spain,
Oh,
the
the
Spanish
Spain
national
job,
team.
yeah. But he hasn't managed a club since then.
No.
He's been I don't know, like we haven't seen enough of
With
him since.
and with Spain, it was considered underwhelming too.
Yeah, but
And I think it's
managing a
his
national team
tactic,
and
and with those types of tactics too. I mean, Del Bosque, he pulled it off, but with Spain back then. But I mean, it's also the players are just not as good as the Spanish team back then as
yeah,
well.
like okay, like if you think about it, well, managing a national team and a club is two very
For sure.
different things. With clubs, you really got to micromanage, and with the national team, like you're at the mercy of the players at the players that you can select and who's on form, and and you don't really have too much time with the players, right?
Yeah.
It's hard to get that chemistry. That's why you see a lot of the times like when national teams have a core from one team, they tend to do better.
Yeah.
But anyways, that's a topic for another day.
Yeah. But I agree with that though. Totally. And I mean, yeah, so PSG all around dominant. But they are still third. They're still 2 points behind first place, who is no other than Stade Brestois. I mean, Stade Brestois, what a start they're having. 4 wins, one draw, one loss. They beat Lyon yesterday, which I mean, Lyon struggling mightily.
Yeah.
It was a late goal too for Stade Brestois, so that must have
They
really
still haven't gotten
stung
their
for
first
Lyon.
win of the year.
Nope, nope. I believe Lyon is what now? 2 draws, 4 losses. So
Yeah. They haven't won a game.
they managed to draw Nice, which was considered impressive.
They haven't won a game since May 27th.
No,
And
wow.
that's like I'm talking about competitive games. That's
Yeah, if we include preseason, I mean, they did win one preseason game
Yes,
against.
they très fort.
Yeah, I don't
Que
even know
très
what this
fort.
team is.
Yeah,
What team are they?
I don't know that team to be honest. But yeah, just
It's I have no idea what this team is. Like I'm just seeing the schedule. Excel. This is maybe I think it's Dutch. Based on the names here, it
c'est
seems
très fort.
Dutch.
C'est beau.
Like Excelsior Mas Luis. I know there's an Excelsior Dutch team. This is maybe like a reserve league or something.
This is the it doesn't really say.
Ado. That's Den Haag.
Hmm?
You see Ado number 6? That's Den Haag.
Oh,
Yeah, which is like Dutch first division team. So this is probably like a very low
yeah, this is like maybe
division in
third, fourth
Dutch.
division,
Yeah, yeah.
and they lost to them. That's
No, that's the only team they beat
oh, they beat them. Right,
in the
right, right.
preseason.
I did
Every
not
other
see
game they
that.
lost though. But they even had a friendly. They actually scheduled a friendly during the last international break. Now I don't know if this was scheduled before the season even started or they scheduled this out of urgency because they were in such bad form that they felt they needed to play a game during the international break to sort of get them back into form.
Yep.
So if that's the case, that's pretty sad. But they did win that game at least against Auxerre from Ligue 2, which last year they were in Ligue 1. They got relegated. And also they drew Le Havre the week before this past weekend. 0-0 Le Havre. They were newly promoted. They won Ligue 2 last year.
Isn't that when they got yelled at by their fans, or was that?
Against PSG, that
Yeah.
was the game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you know what? They have every right to be mad. It's
Yeah.
for
Marseille
a team
also
like Lyon.
Marseille also pulled it off too in their past game, not against PSG, but the game before that. But that apparently it was. This is according to the commentator from the game against PSG. There was like veiled threats against players
Oh, I
to
did
the
not know
point
that.
where the executive director of the club he like publicly condemned the fans
Oh wow.
for their
Yeah, I did
actions, and
not know
already
about
there were
that.
a couple of people who've resigned since and
That's
stuff.
crazy.
Yeah.
I did not know about that.
It was I think in their it was in a draw too against Toulouse. It was a 0-0 draw at home against Toulouse, and Toulouse have are not exactly uh outcast team in league. Like they're maybe struggling a little bit this
Well,
season, but they're
mid-table
in
team.
Europa League this year because of Coupe de France last year, and they
Oh,
finished
yeah,
mid-table.
yeah.
So I mean, they're not the
Very
basement
consistent
dweller
team.
team
Yeah.
to the point where you draw 0-0 and you have to call out your players and even unleash veiled threats against them. I think that's a little bit overkill. I understand
It
the
is.
frustration though, especially considering their start where they
Well, we
won
know the
two of the
well,
first three.
Marseille and Lyon fans, very passionate fans.
Yeah.
So, you know, it happens. Who else?
Then Lens, I mean, I was telling you about Lens and how they were struggling. They won their game today against Toulouse, but before that, they were winless too.
Yeah,
They had the
especially
same
coming
record
off
as
being
Lyon.
second place last year.
Yeah,
But then again, they had a good game against Sevilla, but Sevilla's struggling as well. So
yeah. Who knows? Maybe that game against Sevilla is gonna relaunch them back into form. I
yeah,
mean,
potentially.
since that game, they've played one and they've won it. So
And you see it many times. A team has a good performance in Europe and go back to the league full of confidence and string together a couple
yeah,
of wins and changes their whole season.
Hakimi is an example at PSG scoring in Champions League. He scores a free kick against Marseille.
Yeah, yeah,
A direct free kick. Like that's pretty impressive. I've never seen him done that before. So that's probably given him a lot of confidence to even attempt to do that.
for sure. Yeah, yeah. And we can head over to Serie A. You know, you got both Milans. Yeah, I think it's expected.
Vying for the top, yeah. I
Yeah,
expect both Milans to finish number 1 and 2 essentially.
Napoli a little bit surprising. I don't think they're doing as well as they should be. But again, it's very
Underachieving for
early.
sure.
It's not the biggest deal yet. I still think they can come back
Yeah.
and potentially even challenge. Um, I think Juventus could potentially be a disruptor. I don't know if I don't know if they have the team right now to necessarily win
No, I
the
don't
Serie
think
A,
so.
but I think they could be a disruptor. I think they could. I think a Champions League spot is well within their reach.
Yeah, I agree. But the thing
Um,
is with Juve, I mean, these past couple games, they beat Lazio 3-1. Impressive.
that's a
I
good
know
one.
Lazio's been struggling, but at least hey, they beat Napoli in a pretty decisive game as well. They were definitely the better team in that game. But then after Lazio, they lose 4-2 to Sassuolo. And
Yeah.
Sassuolo haven't exactly been quite good this year.
Again, like we don't expect them to be that consistent team year in year out like they used to be, right?
I think it's more
But
the fact that Juve have allowed 4 goals against them. Like they lost
yeah,
4-2. If it's a 2-1 win, that's maybe more understandable, but they lost 4-2.
they have a couple injuries in the back. Desiglio's injured, Sandro's injured.
Yeah.
Um,
Fiorentina have been playing well as well. I mean, they're
but
fifth
I'm looking
place.
at their team, and honestly, like on paper, they're probably the third best team in the league. If you really think about it, you look at their front line: Moise Keane, Chiesa, Vlahovic, Milik.
Yeah.
Those are top players.
Yeah, for sure.
Their midfield, I'm a big fan of Locatelli. Weston McKinney, very good player. Rabiot, well, he's a consistent player, right?
Yeah.
Paul Pogba, very streaky. We're not gonna talk about him.
Yeah, he has his issues going on now with
Yeah,
the
exactly.
doping or the testosterone.
Yeah, that's true. That's
Yeah.
true. Yeah. They have a good back line. Like honestly, I think.
I think their backline is the weak spot though. If we have to compare
Yeah,
the
for sure. But like again,
positions,
if you compare it to the rest of the league, they're probably
they're
third.
still upper tier. Yeah.
Like they're probably the third best team on paper in the league, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Potentially second, even. I think Inter just beats them out.
Inter beats them out for sure.
But AC Milan's attack is too good compared to them. But midfield.
Well, honestly, I'm gonna tell you one thing. I feel like Inter actually has the best team on paper.
Yeah, that's what I said.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
okay. I thought you meant they're second behind Milan, just above you.
No.
I thought that's what
I think Inter's the best team in the league at the point.
Yeah.
At this point.
I had them in the article I wrote predicting each of the top 5 leagues. I think this one, the Serie A was with the Bundesliga just because they started a week later.
Yeah.
And I have Inter finishing top of the league.
Yeah,
sure.
I agree. Yeah. I think Inter. Honestly, I don't think we'll see too much change in this. I think we'll have Inter followed by Milan, followed by Juve, and unless Atalanta and Fiorentina have crazy, I think Napoli climbs back up and gets a Champions League spot.
Yeah, I had Napoli finishing either third or fourth.
Yeah. Roma's a little disappointing.
Yes, but speaking of Rome now, not Roma, but Rome. The other disappointment we have to mention is Lazio.
Yep.
I mean,
yeah, that's true.
Lazio, sure, they beat Napoli. They clutched up the tying Atletico, but that was at home too. You would expect them maybe to try and actually.
They played good in that game,
win.
honestly. Like not just like forget the end result. I think they played a good game.
Yeah, they didn't even play that bad. It's just they were lackluster. I mean, they couldn't capitalize on anything, and that's the only win they have. They beat Napoli,
That's
but that
win.
is it.
Like that's what I mean. Like I could see them turning this around. I don't think they've been so poor where you're like, oh, it's guaranteed.
They do have a
bad
tough
season.
Yeah, but they have a tough schedule though.
Yeah, but sometimes I could fire you up.
It could. It could. I mean, this is a make or break. I feel. Look at their games. Torino. I mean, that's honestly the weakest team that they're playing in the next 7 games.
Torino,
Lazio,
Milan, Celtic, Atalanta, Sassuolo,
Feyenoord,
like
Fiorentina.
Again,
even Bologna is not too bad, and then you have Feyenoord again, and then it's the Rome derby. That's gonna be something.
Like think about it. Torino, if they can get a win against Torino, they get a win against Atalanta, and they get a win against Sassuolo, which I think are all 3 beatable teams. They're right back in the mix, right?
Yeah.
They're upper middle table, maybe close to a Conference League spot. I don't know. I think it's still too early to call for Lazio. I still think they could turn it around. Same thing with Roma.
Yeah.
Roma just came off a massive win last week. This week maybe a little disappointing to tie, but I still think that they could turn it around. Yeah. Honestly, Serie A is a little pretty predictable this year.
Yeah, we just have to mention quickly Lecce. I mean,
yeah,
third place, 3 wins, 2 draws. One of their wins was against Lazio.
But then again, I
they drew Fiorentina.
I could just be underestimating them, but I don't think it lasts.
I don't think so either.
Like they might have a good year by their standards, maybe finishing 6th, 7th, maybe 8th.
That would be excellent.
Yeah, but
considering they were in Serie B last year.
Yeah. So Lecce, again, third. It's a very impressive start. Very impressive start, but.
And they just squeezed to the title in Serie B last year too. So
was it 71, 69? Yeah.
Yeah.
But still, like it's I don't think they'll stay up there. I think it's a little bit
No, that was
too ambitious for them. But hey, props to them. If they could keep it up, I would love to see them finishing second, or even potentially having some sort of title challenge. But I highly doubt it.
yeah, that would be something. But yeah, I mean, other than that, the Milan teams are at the top. Fiorentina, they're carrying on from their form from last year. And Atalanta, they haven't changed at all. They're sort of that same team, really, in
Yeah,
terms of performances, as far as that goes. Roma, Lazio, yeah, disappointing a little bit. Even Monza, maybe a little disappointing, considering how well they played last year to their standards.
yeah, yeah. No, I
Um,
agree.
Sassuolo, I mean, they've been struggling a couple of years, and yeah, Napoli, they did lose Kim and Jae, and we can tell it took a hit, especially in that
For sure.
loss against
Well,
Lazio too.
he was the best the defender in the league last year.
Yeah,
Like he was, I'd say almost top three in the world last year.
yeah, he
Like
won
yeah,
Defender of the Year
yeah,
in
exactly.
Italy. And I mean, I think the real issue right now with Napoli, though, it's definitely their attack. Kvaratskhelia, he hasn't scored since March 19th, I believe is the
Which is
date.
crazy considering the year
Yes.
he had last year.
Yeah.
Like you don't expect a player to just like turn off like that. It's
Yeah.
it's 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 kind of crazy.
He's still been producing in terms of playmaking, assisting, but like this season, from the first game this season, he has not been playing well even in that respect. He hasn't been playing that well in that respect. And you can tell in his game, especially today against Bologna, 0-0 draw.
Yep.
You could see the frustration in his game.
And like coming from being such a high scoring team, like you saw them in Champions League. Did they break a record for group stage goals, or they were close to it.
There was something of the sorts.
Yeah, like I don't remember exactly what it was, but they were a fluid attacking team, scoring crazy amounts of goals, and for them to just for the goals to just dry up so quickly,
Yeah.
it's well,
And it's also
it's
22
well,
years
unusual.
old.
Yeah, but
22.
that's the thing. 22,
Yeah.
he still has time to mature, really, I guess be more consistent in his game. So I wouldn't rule him out. I'm just saying he's been a little bit underwhelming,
Yeah.
but again, the next thing you know, in the next game, he gets 2 goals and an assist and just takes off from there for the rest of the year. So
Yeah.
could always happen.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I think that does it for the top 5 leagues.
Yeah, yeah,
We've covered it quite a bit, and I mean, if we look at football here now in North America, if we speak about Italians, Insigne, Bernardeschi, Toronto FC, they just crashed out of the playoffs. Mathematically speaking, now
yeah,
they lost 3
yeah,
nothing to New York City FC today.
yeah,
They've both had very, very disappointing seasons for their standards, but also even just objectively speaking,
for sure.
for an attacker, those stats are horrendous. And I mean, this is excluding how much they're getting paid and
Yeah.
the type of
Which
player
is
they
weird,
are.
also. Like we've seen many players come from Europe, especially like Insigne is not an old player, right? Like he
No,
came in pretty much his prime.
yeah,
And we've seen players come and absolutely dominate in the MLS. So I'm a little surprised.
I am. I
You
have to
know?
say, I am as well. I mean, Insigne, honestly, I thought it'll be a make or break. Either he's gonna flourish and be top scorer type player,
Yep.
or he's gonna absolutely flop for whatever reason. And the latter seemed to have proven. It seemed like the former was gonna take place when he first arrived last year, mid-season. But then this season, he's just been awful,
Yep.
awful. Bernardeschi's been a little bit better, but I mean, very, very subpar. They're bottom of the East. They're
By 10 points.
they're tied for last. This includes the Western Conference.
Yep.
And yeah, it's just Toronto. It's been another disappointing season. I saw a stat somewhere that they will be the first team ever in MLS where it's a non-expansion year in either of their years to finish in the bottom 2 for 3 years straight.
Oh wow, I did not know about that.
Yeah.
That's pretty disappointing from Toronto. Inter Miami, you think too little, too late?
Too little, too late.
Yeah,
And now Messi got injured too.
yeah,
So
that's true. He hasn't been playing last two games in this so far. Yeah.
he missed one because of a break. Like they didn't want to play him. But then he played against, or he missed actually 2 for that matter.
Yeah.
But then he played against Toronto, but then he got taken off injured with Jordi Alba. Both got injured in the first half. Yeah.
That's
I don't know
big
how
loss.
serious the injuries are, but I do think
Well,
it's too little, too late,
If you think about
especially
it,
if they're out.
if they're out, then it'll be tough. But with Messi and Jordi Alba, Busquets, all the guys that they have 2 games in hand from ninth place. It's possible. 2 games in hand, 5 points behind. They win those 2 games. They're on 38 points. They're technically in a playoff spot at that point.
Yeah,
But I think it's possible if Messi can make a quick
yeah.
comeback. Let's see. Actually, how long is he out
It
for?
depends on
Do
the
we know?
schedule that they have. That's the thing too. It
Well, if they're
depends.
playing teams that have already clinched, it's
Yeah, but thing is, the standings are still very close. 1-1. They just drew 1-1 full time against
today
Orlando.
Orlando, yeah.
That's a big
But they still
rivalry.
have 2 games in hand.
Yeah, yeah, that includes that. They have the Open Cup final actually this week. I don't know if Messi's going to be able to play that. He could still
So
claim that as a trophy though, because he
yeah.
did play in the semifinal.
So actually,
So they have
Messi's back in a couple days.
okay, so
So
it's a
they saying
smaller
he got
tournament.
just a minor muscle injury.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I could see them, man. I could see them maybe pushing for a playoff spot if
What's really doing them good, but at that point it could be literally too late, depending how they do beforehand. Their last 2 games are one home, one away against Charlotte, and Charlotte is considered the weaker team amongst all of those that are fighting for a playoff spot right now.
well,
Um,
again, that's
and that could be a good thing, but it could also be useless depending how well they play these next 3 games since they have 5 left.
well, hold on. If you think about it though, like just consider the teams
Yeah,
if they have 2 games in hand, right? The teams who have played more, let's say that they don't play until Inter Miami catches up. You're looking at 2 wins, 38 points. They passed DC United, they passed New York City FC, and they'll be even on games played. I'm looking. There's only, I guess, New York Red Bulls, but even if they win, they're on 37. Chicago, they win, they're on 37. Charlotte win their next 2 games. I guess Charlotte's really their only threat if Inter Miami win the next 2 games.
yeah. If they win the next 2 games, because yeah, they're 2 games. I don't know if you checked the schedule. They're against New York City FC and
Which that's
Chicago
big.
Fire.
That's big.
Yeah,
If Messi plays those games, I could see them. I could see them making a playoff spot.
they could. I mean, they still can for sure. And then they have Cincinnati, which is the best team in the league,
That
by
that could
far
be
too.
that could be it. Well, then again, is Cincinnati gonna go gonna go all out for
That's
that
the
game?
thing.
They're
Yeah,
they're 11 points ahead at the moment from second place. They've clinched,
yeah.
everything
They're
they've
facing.
clinched first place. That's it. Like it's not.
Yeah, they're facing Cincinnati at the right time.
Yeah, exactly. It's I could definitely see them win and just Messi's quality. It's Messi. You
Yeah,
know, the stats he's been putting up are just absolutely ridiculous. He went like what 7 games in a row scoring,
yeah.
and that's not including assists. His goals, his goal contributions have been out of this world.
There's only one game that he's well, two if you include the Toronto one where he got injured.
Yeah,
But there's only so if you exclude that game, there's only one game that he's played that he hasn't scored, and that was against Nashville,
yeah.
a 0-0 draw.
No, but yeah. So I could see them. I could see them. I think we might have overlooked their chances.
Perhaps, perhaps. I mean,
Two wins away, then it's what I'm saying. It's in their hand, right?
yeah, it
They're
is.
not
It is.
relying on anyone else's results.
No, when you have games in hand, it's definitely
Yeah,
yours for the taking.
like they're yeah. So it could be very
But they're also in
interesting.
the position where if they do say they lose their next game,
Yeah,
then that destiny is already
yeah. It's no
slashed by
longer in.
quite a
Yeah,
bit.
they'll need some results to go their way. But
Exactly.
as it stands right now, it's in their hands. They win 2 games. They're in the playoffs.
Exactly. And lately, these teams, excluding maybe the New York teams who've been winning a couple games lately, but Chicago, Charlotte, even Montreal, but I'm also talking from a Montreal perspective, and DC, and Charlotte, they've been losing quite a bit lately. So that works for Miami, but it even works for Montreal as well because we're at the top there, right? Amongst these teams
Yep,
that we're
with
talking
a game in
about.
hand as well.
Yeah, and
Well,
thing is,
over New York City FC and DC
yeah,
United.
and thing is with that, because these other teams have been playing bad, except obviously the two New York teams, but they were even lower than Chicago, Charlotte, DC. They were like Inter Miami level almost. Montreal haven't been able to maintain that eighth spot. and Montreal are on like a 4-game winless streak.
Oh, that could be. Who are they playing? They're playing Orlando, Houston, Portland, and Columbus.
Yeah. So no, 5-game winless streak. Sorry, 2 losses, then 2 draws, and now a loss again. And Montreal don't have an easy schedule. They're playing Orlando, which is the second best team in the league.
Yeah,
They
yeah.
have
And
Houston,
Orlando's not
who
letting
are
up.
dark horses in the West, but they're playing at home at least.
But
And then they have
that
Portland.
Orlando game might be tough because
will be.
Orlando still wants to
No
win.
doubt.
Orlando don't want to lose that second seed
Yeah.
spot.
And they're the only team who technically still have a chance to finish first.
Yeah,
you
but
look
I
at
don't
the
think there is.
standings,
I
they
think
won't.
they're more.
They won't. I don't
They're
think
just
they
trying to
will.
create some separation from them in Columbus.
Yeah. Yeah, it would take a miracle for Orlando to
Yeah.
finish first. Because I mean, Cincinnati, there's an 11-point difference, 4 games left. So even if Orlando wins all of them, that's like 12. They would get 12 points.
Even Portland
Then
could
you
be a
have to
tough
rely
game.
on Cincinnati. Portland will be tough. Even Houston. Houston
'Cause
are
Portland-
considered the dark horses of the West, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Especially because Houston, the years prior, have not been good, and now this year they're really surging and they're playing well. Then Portland, they're fighting. I mean, they're going to be fighting till the very end. And then there's Columbus, and they're playing in Columbus too. That's going to be a tough one as well. And if it goes down to the wire, Montreal might not make it. But because this was their week where they had to clutch up on some results, they had Chicago at home, Cincinnati at home, Atlanta on the road. I figured they were probably going to lose that. But Chicago at home, you draw 0-0. Montreal, literally,
Direct rival.
all that was missing was a goal. They had everything else under control. And then Cincinnati, they were up 1-0 up until the very end where they concede a penalty. And then draw 1-1. And then that's that.
Again, Cincinnati's not playing for much at this point. But yeah. Yeah, that's pretty much the MLS covered.
Yeah. And I
okay.
mean, the rest will be determined. Literally week by week, the playoffs will look a little bit more clear.
Yeah.
Literally every team is competing for them except for Colorado and Toronto. Literally every team is competing for one spot or another.
Extremely poor.
So yeah, I mean, next weekend we'll be keeping an eye out for some results.
For sure.
For our next podcast episode, we'll be discussing more about MLS as well as it gets closer to the end of the regular season.
Yeah.
And this week it's a little calmer with the European schedule as well. There's still some interesting games, but we don't have Champions League and Europa League and Conference League this year.
Actually, you have some midweek games this week.
Yeah, instead it's midweek.
Yeah.
In England, there's the EFL.
Yeah. Germany got the DFB Pokal.
Yeah, Manchester United are going to have a very good opportunity now. Back-to-back games against Crystal Palace, EFL and EPL.
Yep.
So this could be a very good opportunity for Manchester United. Mentioned it in the article that will be out tomorrow, included in the newsletter, but also on the website. You'll be able to check that out at thegoaheadgoal.com. You can subscribe to the newsletter from the website. The link will be in the description below. And yeah,
in case we haven't said, this is going to be a weekly episode.
Yes.
Just to make it clear. So
exactly.
so expect another episode the next week. We'll be again just running through the top 5 leagues, MLS, any interesting stories that pop up. We'll be talking about it for sure. So I think that's all we really have time for today anyways.
Yeah, that covers it.
Yeah, so thank you very much. This is our first episode. Like, comment, subscribe, turn on the notifications. You know the whole drill. I'm sure you've heard this a million times.
Share it with your friends and family.
Yeah,
all that great stuff.
And comment. Let us know what you think. We're always we always want to hear some feedback. Constructive criticism is always appreciated.
Of course, feedback and even your takes. Let us know about your takes as well on certain topics.
Yeah,
because
for sure. Because we'll be reading the comments.
Oh, for sure.
We'll be listening to what people say, and
we may even reply.
Yeah, exactly. So, so stay tuned for the next episode, and we'll see you guys.
Yeah, perfect. Well, I'm Tony,
Peter,
and have a great week, and we'll see you next week on the episode right here.
Football minded.